Welcome back to you to the next segment of our program, The Call of Faith on Armed Forces Radio Service 107.7 FM Abuja. On the second segment of our program today, you may recall last week we talked about some of the things that could happen when couples begin to pretend to love themselves, whereas in reality, they do not love themselves. So today we're going to be talking, detail for that, we're going to be talking about why couples fall out of love. You imagine how it happens. You, the wife, you, the husband, have an issue, you loved yourself. If I no see him, I go die. I no go chop till my husband come back. I no go chop if I don't see my wife and all this stuff. You guys are flying on the same. You are flying on the same plane. But what happens therefore then that when after some time, some years, you now begin to look at yourself differently. You begin to let him just stay on his lane. I stay on my lane. I don't want to care about anybody. What happens? Why would couples fall out of love? Many a times we think these things just happen suddenly, but no, it doesn't happen suddenly. Couples do not fall out of love suddenly. They fall out of love gradually. But it happens in an insidious manner that neither of them noticed it, or maybe one of them noticed, they just look the other way. It doesn't matter. It doesn't feel it's waiting concern me. Waiting concern me. And this is one thing that is going to, with time, break the backbone of marital life. Now, like I mentioned earlier, so many factors are responsible for couples falling out of love. One of them is emotional neglect. When husband and wife stop listening to themselves, they start ignoring how they feel about themselves. One of them needs an attention. The wife needs an attention, or your husband needs an attention, and you just ignored it. Either using direct statement or nonverbal expression to tell you that I need you, either conjugally in the other room or all other forms of attention, and you just constantly ignore it. Or you dismiss about complaints from your partner. Everything you just leave and these things make tension to build up in a relationship. Emotionally, you neglect yourself, and each person just stays separately, even though those of you still live under the same roof. This situation can make love between couples to fade away. Before their very eyes, they see their marriages collapsing. The next one that can also cause that is unresolved conflict between couples. When conflict happens repeatedly, it makes resentment to grow quietly. Frequent scuffle, frequent fight, when couples begin to avoid issues to be discussed, when they suppress some discussion, when they postpone some discussion till another time. Maybe your wife gets to you and tells you, my darling, we're going to talk about this issue right now. And you say, I don't have the time for you. Or your husband meets you, babe, we need to talk about this issue. You feel I don't have the time right now. I gotta face my work. I gotta face my children. I gotta face my business. And these are the things that occupy centrally your attention. Then once you begin to mainstream or bring to the front burner other issues that are ancillary to the relationship, then you see yourself falling out of love before your very eyes. Or sometimes it could happen when you don't resolve a conflict. You don't resolve conflict at the instant, and you just buried it, and the other guy feels that I've not been addressed, I've not been treated fairly. Either the wife or the husband feels that way. Over time, these things will make the love between the couples to fizzle away. Furthermore, when in particular husbands, when they use sharp criticism or opprobrious statement, egregious comment, vile statement against their wives, or some people they issue threat to their wives, they threaten their wives, and then this fear comes into the relationship to replace the love. Ordinarily, husband and wife should relate based on love. Now, when they now begin to relate based on fear, this in and of itself make the relationship to atrophy. The strength drops, and it emasculates every strength that every relationship should have. The esteem goes down. So when couple begin to repeatedly have what we call negative communication, it breaks the backbone of marriage over time and so easily. So the touch of affection is gone. The couples can no longer look at themselves eyeball to eyeball now, because other things are central to a relationship. They're still living together, quite frankly, but they know that their hearts are no longer together, and this is very sad to a relationship. So we have to be careful of how our love, our relationship is gradually fading away before our very eyes. Other reason that can cause this is stonewalling. If one partner shuts down, the other partner becomes unstable. Stonewalling involves when someone just feels that I want to knock out the other party.